not to watch too much of what's going on, and try not to think too much, too hard, and get yourself into a stressful, stress and anxiety. Remember to spend that time in the Word and just, pray through this. Pray through this and focus on the positive and speak life and thankfulness into this as an example for your children, and also to keep your own focus. So I would agree with you on that. I would be as gentle as possible, but yet still have that structure. I would even go so far as to say you start and you do your textbook work in the same place every day, preferably a designated place.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a good week. Hey,
we were waiting for the countdown timer to go off, and he got weird about it.
Hey, so we're going to talk today about surprise, you're a homeschooler. We have a lot of new people that have come into the group that are just kind of like they thought they had a little more time before they began homeschooling, or maybe hadn't considered it, and now all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe we will. We also have some first-year homeschoolers. If you just survived your first year, we certainly want to hear from you. So put a post up and say, hey, we're surviving our first year. If you are new, like you're maybe just a week or 2 weeks into this, or you're going to be new in the fall, I want you to post and tell us that you're there, because Brittany is going to choose somebody from the Facebook group. We're going to give 2,500 reward points to a newbie. And in the app, if you're newbie in the app, if you're not part of the app and you're in Facebook, boy, you ought to check it out. I love the app. I love how it's just very focused. It's no distractions. You can check out groups that are more like you, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, that's my plug for the app group. Be sure to put in, let us know as well. You're going into your first year of homeschooling. So we want to know the two. We want to know if you have survived your first year and if you're going to go into your first year. Okay. So what we're going to talk about is advice we would give to newbies, you're just considering it, or you're just in the beginning of it. I
went back. I went into the app and double checked it, and it's still going.
The app is still going. Okay, yeah. Okay, and I've got three people here. Obviously, myself, Randy, and I am the VP of Sales and Marketing here at Master Books. I have Brittany. Brittany is my daughter. She is also the publicist at Master Books. And we are joined by Kristen. Kristen is development. I always do this. What are you, babe?
I'm your wife.
My wife. She's also
first and foremost.
She's also like the curriculum development editor. Good. Yay.
I can't get these right.
High fives. And we've been homeschooling for a lot of years. We've helped a lot of families get started. So let's start with to the first year homeschool. We're just thinking about homeschooling. Kristen, what is your advice to a mom who says, I'm thinking about homeschooling? Like, where's the best starting spot?
The starting spot is to look the laws of your state. That would be the very first thing that I would do. I recommend going to hslda.org and looking up your state. I have wasps flying around me, so if I kind of dodge a little bit, I'm a little.
She's going crazy.
Lots of wood around me, so they're gathering for their nest. Anyhow, I would go there first and just kind of get a feel for what's required in your state. If you happen to live in a state like New York, where it seems pretty intense, don't get scared off by it. We lived in New York. New York was one of the hardest states to homeschool, and once you kind of got it figured out and got a rhythm down every year, it was some work, but it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, you kind of figure it out and get used to what you have to do. So that's where I would start. Once I did that, I would look into a statewide Christian homeschool support group, and I would also see if I could find any local chapters. That would be probably the second thing that I would do, and start talking to other moms who homeschool. And I would then move on to the Master Books website and start looking at curriculum. Curriculum out there, but you know.
Yeah. If I could say something about that, Facebook groups, when you're in a group like Master Books and there's 20,000 moms, they're all over the world and in different states. It's not the best place to get your legal advice, right? A lot of times, like in where we live now, it's so much different than New York. And you can forget that you have to have paperwork in, you have to have quarterlies, you have to have standardized tests. So there's a lot of these things. And HSLDA really is the best place because you can click on your state. It gives you a letter, right? Usually there's a sample letter to send to the school district and let them know that you're intending to homeschool. We have to do that even in Arkansas. It's just a simple letter.
And that's why when we see those posts, we put up that gift sometimes that says, hey, we can't offer legal
Ow,
advice.
Mom.
Please go to
Taking sides.
One GIF, I guess, depending on GIF, the image, how's that?
Oh, you mean the gift?
Saying we can't give legal advice, because we have seen in the group where somebody will post something and then somebody else will come in and say, oh, you don't have to do that. Well, maybe that person doesn't have to, but the original poster does.
Right.
And so it can get real confusing, which is why we don't allow those discussions to go on in the group. Because we don't want somebody to accidentally do something that's against the law and get themselves in hot water because they listened to advice in our group that wasn't accurate.
Right. And I think for most people that don't understand, if the superintendent, the district superintendent for most jurisdictions is responsible for the education of children in his region or school district. And that's why they need to know, if you have a child in my school district and I'm responsible for their education, you need to let me know your intent. And so you file a letter of intent usually, or HSLDA will tell you what you need to do to let the school district know how you intend to school them. And then you follow through.
Some states don't require that. Some states you don't have to give any kind of notice. So you really need to know exactly what your state requires. And HSLDA usually says, don't do more than what they require. So
right.
Meet what your state says to do, but don't go beyond that.
Okay. Okay, so then
And I would recommend once you decide to homeschool that you join HSLDA, because they will represent you if you have issues with your state related to homeschooling.
Okay. So let's say, okay, so I've gone through the legal, I've made sure I know what my requirements are. Now I've got to figure out how to move forward. If you had a student who, like our first student, homeschooling, who came back, who had a real negative experience in school, what would your advice be, like where we are? We pulled halfway through that school year. And some parents right now are in that where kids are home. Should we start? Should we de-school? What should we do? What would you recommend that parents who are in this spot do right now?
I think that there's some amount of de-schooling that needs to go on. The time frame for that is debatable. So de-schooling is simply unplugging from the traditional mindset of school. And so a student is used to a certain concept of what school is. And it's just kind of a debriefing, it's just giving a period of time for the kid just to be a kid, to forget about the way that things were done for a bit. It's almost like you could call it a summer vacation or a mini vacation from school. And you just explore learning in different ways other than curriculum. So you might get asked some educational board games, you might go visit some museums, you might watch some educational videos. It's just still teaching your student, but just taking a little bit of a break. Now, how long that break is, number one, it's going to depend on the laws of your state. So, like in New York, you never could have just taken the rest of the year off. And I see people that recommend that, and it's not necessarily legal to do that. You really need, that's why you have to know the laws of your state. So don't just decide, oh, well, so-and-so said I should spend the rest of the year deschooling, and so we're just gonna have fun. Well, that's great, except your state may say, no, you can't do that.
Right.
In our case, we probably deschooled for a week or two. It was a long time ago. It was Carrie, our oldest, and she was halfway through her first grade year. But we did spend a little bit of time. It was only a week or two of deschooling because in New York, there really wasn't much of a choice there. They're pretty rigid on what you have to do and how you have to do it. So, but even with saying that, when you jump back, when you do go back into formal education, you can do it in a way that's a little softer. You don't have to go in real hard, fast, harsh, and make it an unpleasant experience. You can ease your way into what you require, what subjects you tackle, and when. For example, if you have a kid that say loves science, you could start with science. Maybe do, if you have to do all the subjects, if you have to do something in all of them, you could do, say, science 5 days a week, but only do math twice a week, something like that.
Okay. So I'm brand new. Now, I should put a disclaimer here. I've often said that there are as many homeschool methods and styles as there are homeschoolers, that there is no one size fits all. And so just because one family has found success with something doesn't mean it's going to work for your family. I say that because Kristen and I don't always agree, and she has a disclaimer on me that not everything I say or do represents her. So I just want to say that before I say this.
Which means he's going to disagree with me, and that's okay.
No, I oftentimes when we've worked with new homeschool families and it's overwhelming, what I say is try to find a structure that, like, don't worry about being too creative. Don't worry about unschooling. Don't worry about going way outside the box and building all these things. Like, we have our basic 4 sets, and our basic 4 set, it gives you kind of the model: math, language, social studies, science. You can add in electives or special trips or whatever, but you kind of want to have a little bit of a structure so that it gives you a bit of a crutch your first year as you're getting your sea legs. What say you?
I would agree with that. I think having some sort of structure is really important for a student to transition into a home learning. So if you can take a little bit of a vacation to deschool and then step back in to it with some structure, I would absolutely do that. I would put forth a schedule a little, even if it's a little flexible, but still putting in that schedule. And I would do the minimum number of subjects required by law to get started with, absolutely. So I would agree with you on that. I would be as gentle as possible, but yet still have that structure. I would even go so far as to say you start and you do your textbook work in the same place every day, preferably a designated place for that first year, if possible. Don't panic if that's not possible, but ideally what it does is it gets the student's mind into a different place. Because what you have to realize with homeschooling is we're homeschooling in the same place that they're playing, that they're eating dinner and lunch and playing board games and, where they're building with their Legos and all of that. It's in the same exact environment. So it can be difficult for a student to transition their mind from what's taking place all those other days and times and weekends and everything else into, oh, okay, now this is school related and I need to focus.
Yeah.
Instead, their minds are on the Lego set that they just built at the kitchen table, and now they're sitting at the kitchen table having to focus on their school. And that can be a little bit of a challenge. Now, if you don't have a choice, well, then you just have to deal with that. But if you have a choice, it's ideal to have some sort of a school-only spot that they're good to just transition that mind.
Yeah. I'm gonna kind of swing back around to kind of some tips for living with homeschoolers. On the curriculum side, so we've got our legal. Help me understand a little bit. There's all different types of curriculum.
Yeah.
So automatically I'm faced with traditional curriculum, classical method, Charlotte Mason method, hybrids, unit studies, and everybody's the best. Everybody claims that that's the only way to educate a child. What say you?
Well, I think it's good to keep in mind that everybody feels that their own style is absolutely the best. When I was homeschooling, we started off using ACE because that's what we were accustomed with. Both of us have graduated from an ACE school. However, as I learned about other curriculums, I quickly experimented with all sorts of other things, and eventually we found things that were better and some things that weren't. And some of it depended on the child. But another method that was highly pushed, it was pushed heavily among our peers, I looked at and I was really disturbed. It was a Christian curriculum, but I was really disturbed by some of the content and their approach. It didn't feel like it was a biblical method. And so I just said no to that. And, I got criticism from my peers, but I knew that it was my responsibility to do what was right before the Lord and for my own students. So I do think it can be overwhelming, and I think that you need to take a lot of mental breaks when you're studying it. But it is helpful to understand that a lot of curriculum out there, the main ones like Rebecca, BJU, and some of the others, they were written, and even ACE, they were all written for schools. They weren't written for the homeschool environment. And so you have to realize that there's going to be a lot of adapting that you're going to need to do with that. And you can't expect to finish every page, every lesson, take every quiz and test and everything with those typed. So you have to know what the curriculum that you're using was designed for. Mm-hmm. It's also extremely important to understand the classical method, the Charlotte Mason method, just to have unschooling. You don't have to go deep into it, but just get the basic understanding of those different types of methods. Even within master books, we have some series that are more influenced by the classical model and some that are more influenced by Charlotte Mason. Now, our younger curriculum tends to be more influenced by Charlotte Mason. And so it would be helpful for you to understand that when you're looking at our curriculum. And then, of course, like we said, the traditional that was written for schools, that's an entirely different model there. And so it is important to have just a basic understanding. Like I said, I wouldn't go crazy into going into all the nuances, but just educate yourself, just an overview of understanding of all of that. Take mental breaks, give yourself rewards if you have to after you get burned out.
Buy a bag of chocolate.
But yeah, I would definitely spend some time researching in those realms just so you have an understanding. But I personally feel that master books is an ideal curriculum to get started in because it is a more gentle type approach. Now I say that, but regardless of which curriculum you choose, placement is key. So as you're getting ready, don't place that order with any company until you have checked to see is there a placement test. Now, a lot of them don't have placement. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't for subjects other than math and English. So those are the two you really want to make sure that you are placed properly in. You can't have a student come from any background and not have things that they're not going to know as well, or maybe they already know, because every curriculum, even if it has the exact same grade stamped on it, they're just going to approach things differently. They're going to cover different things at different times. So it's really important to properly place your student no matter what curriculum you're going to use. And it may mean that you just review a few things in a certain level and then letting them start for real in the next level up.
Okay, so I want to say a word about mentors. I think it's handy to find a homeschool mom who can mentor you. But what we've seen over the years, and it's changed a little bit because of social media and we have access to more people, but what we've seen over the years is a region would have kind of an alpha mom. One of the initial, she kind of started homeschooling first. Other people would use her as a mentor. What are you using? And of course, they're often, if you fought against went against the current years ago, you had to be kind of a strong person. And so a lot of the alpha moms, if you ask them what they're doing or what you should use, they have no problem telling you what you should use or what you should be doing. And in different regions of the country, there's different curriculums that tend to permeate. And it used to be a lot worse than it is today. But like where we were, there were 2 or 3 curriculums that this is what the alpha moms used, and this is what the newbies were expected to use, and even if it didn't fit for their family. I say all that to say, find yourself a mentor that you can ask questions and that too, but also let them know that rejecting something because you don't choose the curriculums that they use for their kids doesn't mean you're rejecting them. It just means that you're gaining input, you're gaining insight, and you're giving yourself room to try things and fail and try new things. So there can be peer pressure in homeschooling from other people, especially moms that are seasoned and they know what they're doing. Take advantage of their wisdom, but also give yourself permission to experiment a little bit with new things and not feel bound to have to be stuck by what they're saying.
I would go a little farther, and I would definitely glean from those even that are strongly opinionated that you might not necessarily agree with. But I would also look for somebody who approaches it with a tell me about your family and what you're looking for approach, and is more open-minded and matches your approach, isn't afraid to recommend something for you that might be right for you that they don't necessarily use themselves. A good indicator might be, well, hey, I know so-and-so, they use this. You might want to look into that because it sounds like that could be a really good solution for you.
Right.
Look for somebody who uses those terms and is willing to recommend things outside of their own experience if it sounds like that's the best approach. Yeah. Because if you don't find some people like that, you're probably going to get a little bit frustrated.
Yeah, I agree. See, I'm not a mom, but I'm an alpha mom, so I tend to be kind of opinionated, and I believe Master Books is probably the only curriculum a family should be using. And I can give you 1,000 reasons why, and I can give you 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't be using the curriculum that's not Master Books related.
That's not an alpha mom, that's a marketer.
Oh, okay.
Alpha sales.
All right. So, okay, we have to do a rapid fire. Brittany, if you got questions, and we'll answer as fast as we can with rapid fire.
Okay, Jessica said, so I have a question. This week has been our first week of homeschooling. I did buy curriculum from you guys as we plan to homeschool this fall. Well, we felt led to start now since school is closed. We were just doing printables. What did I just say? Printables. Why did I say it so weird? Printables on the internet, like math worksheets, etc. Well, my 2 public school kids want more. Should I just start their master books curriculum? I wasn't planning to, but they want more than I've been able to give them.
Sure.
I say, yeah, if they're hungry to do schoolwork, let them go. Like, just.
It's just going to relieve the pressure for next year if you need to have, if you have unforeseen circumstances that you have to take a little bit of a break.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say go for it.
All right.
Kathleen said, can you give advice for those of us who are seasoned home educators? What can we do to support those that are temporarily homeschooling or those that are just starting? I know we can be an influence, positive or negative, depending on how we interact with them.
I say let them know that they're going to survive, right? The first year is the hardest. You think you're going to break your kids. You don't have any confidence. You got to get your sea legs. And the first year, after you get through the first year and into the second year, you realize you didn't break the kids. They actually don't drool in public most of the time. You know, those little things that we worry about as first year homeschoolers. And if you find a good support group, our support group, when we started, was on AOL way back in the day when American Online came on. And it was a chat group that was called, what was that, Homefront Hall?
Homefront Hall.
Homefront Hall. There was probably 20 or 30 of us that were homeschooling. And I remember it being like a lifeline. It was, we had our computer kind of at the end of the bed, and Kristen would sit there typing with these moms from all over the country. And I would just sit there over her shoulders looking. It's like, oh, we're going to be okay. Like, they're experiencing what we're experiencing too. And it really was such a blessing. And that's where we work really hard with the Moms of Master Books to keep things positive, to keep things focused on curriculum, and to support your family, because we want to be that for you.
I would also like to add, ask them what they're struggling with. You know, don't assume you know what they're going through, because they're going through something that none of us really understand. You know, we didn't suddenly have our kids at home with no warning, no anything, and suddenly this whole responsibility is in our lap. You know, we made the choice to homeschool. Nobody pushed this on us. It didn't just happen out of the blue. And so they've had no preparation. So don't assume that you know what they're experiencing. Ask questions and give thoughtful answers, and don't necessarily project your own experiences onto them, but really listen and find out what it is that they're looking for and what kind of help they need.
There's our 2 approaches. That's why it's good that you and I are married, because I know what people are struggling with. You assume what people, you don't know what people are struggling with. So I can help you by telling you what people are struggling with, and then you can answer. So it's a blessing. It's a blessing.
What did you call it earlier when we were messing around with the screen? A high five to the face?
Yeah.
Let me see. Can I get that? Let me see.
There you go.
Okay, next question.
Gloria said, new here. How is this curriculum with gifted students? My son learns very quickly, to say the least. We have had a hard time keeping up with him. If I were to order curriculum and he went through it in 4 months, this would get super expensive. However, at the same time, some subjects may take longer. I am at a loss as what would be good stewardship regarding his schooling.
Well, placement is going to be important. So you want to make sure that you're placing him in the right place so that he's actually challenged. We do have a son who is just like that. And it's not so hard in high school because the high school courses require a whole lot more. But all through elementary, it can be pretty challenging. I used to give him just extra workbooks and things to do. But really, I think if you let him go through it at his own pace, Master Books is pretty reasonable. And so I would just chalk it up as, I know it can get expensive, but I'd also chalk it up as the cost of homeschooling for that student. You're really saving quite a bit with Master Books.
Because when you're talking a year of math, right? A year of math from Master Books is like $30. So you could buy 3 years for what the cost of some competitive courses are. So
Yeah, another thing that you can do is in a lot of our courses, there's additional activities. There's digging deeper type ideas that you can do. They're just extension to the curriculum. So I would have him do a lot of those things, whether it be an experiment, a report, some sort of art activity. I would have him do as many of those as you possibly can to stretch out his education.
Awesome. Over in the Facebook Live feed, Rachel asked, do you think waiting out the year, like I was planning on doing, and struggling through public school at home and starting master books in the fall would be better? It's rough as I am also working full-time from home and not doing very well right now either.
I think you could start with some basics. Get them math and language. You don't necessarily have to equip everything. You could do reading and stuff like that and supplement. But I think you could at least get them doing the basics, so that, because those are foundational every year. You need to have certain things that you're learning, especially in elementary school, to prepare them for the next grade level. So I don't know that I would walk away from that, but I think you could lighten up a little bit.
I would use an abbreviated schedule as well. As a work-at-home mom myself, that's key. I have to have a schedule. Now my kids are gonna go off track. I don't know what they're doing right now. They should be doing school, maybe their school, actually they should be done with school. But sometimes if I'm distracted, like in a live like this, I'm not always positive where they are. So I have to know that that's just gonna happen.
We're actually,
I have realistic expectations.
we're actually in 2 separate locations right now, and we've split the kids. And so I do know where my kids are today and what school they're doing.
On them. I don't have cameras on mine. You stole all the cameras.
I have cameras. I can log in and see what they're doing in the schoolroom when I'm working. So yeah, just saying.
I would do a light schedule so that when you're working, you kind of know what they're doing and where they are. I think that'll help a lot, regardless of what you do going forward.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk. You got another one from the app?
I have just 2 more.
Okay.
Caitlin Morris, she said, ideas for how to have fun and enjoy your days, keeping positive relationships with your kids. These were things that were hard for us when we started. I was a mom, teacher, disciplinarian, chef, and more. Okay,
so first of all, Caitlin, we're not answering any of your questions, and that's that. Second, no, the reason I say that, I'm being funny. I did a funny face, and I'm not doing it again in this Facebook Live, and Caitlin grabbed that screenshot, and it's circulating the internet. And
I thought it was Anna.
Anna made it into a GIF, but Caitlin is the one who actually grabbed it.
Also, she made it into another correction. She made it into a meme, not a GIF. So just, you know.
So she made it into a mime.
He calls them mimes.
He made it into.
So yeah, that's a good. Yeah, he calls them mimes all the time. I had to be like, it's a meme.
It's not yours. It was Caitlin's.
I said nobody knows what you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm with Brittany on this. It's a meme. Can you show us what you look like in this meme?
No.
They're gonna screenshot you again.
There, now you're gonna get it. See?
Oh, he had his tongue sticking out.
Yeah. So. We were joking about what Facebook Lives would look like, and she grabbed that screenshot and put it up, and then somebody else made it. That was a GIF?
That was a meme.
No, she just grabbed the picture.
Yeah, GIFs are like the moving images that she texted people.
Okay.
Memes are like they have text on it, but it doesn't move.
Okay. So she made a meme, but that one didn't have text on it. She just did a screenshot and said, "Here's your thumbnail," and then actually Anna Walter turned it into something much worse, and just shame. Shame on you people.
It's hilarious.
So, because I've only sowed good seed in my life, and I don't deserve to reap those kind of crops.
Baloney.
Every day I pray, Lord, please don't let those seeds.
I'm going to answer the question since you won't.
And Jessica Gillenwater said Jif like the peanut butter. FYI.
We're going to celebrate what Caitlin did because it was hysterical. I'm
just joking.
The first year of homeschooling is exhausting. It really is exhausting because you are taking on a whole new role and you're all learning together. So the kids can be a little bit cranky, a little bit edgy. You can be exhausted. And so, yeah, it can be that first year really hard to see the forest for the trees. So I do think it is important to take some time out to have fun. But I want to caution, make sure that the things that you're taking time out for fun are things that your kids think is fun. Because like for me, I was shocked that most of my kids didn't want to do science experiments. Like I thought that was awesome. But a lot of my kids hated science experiments. I don't know why. I loved them. I would have thought that was awesome as a kid. So you kind of need to have some discussion, I think, with your kids and just say, hey, I've got like these 3 things. Which ones would you rather do? And then sometimes it's something as just getting out and taking a walk. You can do all sorts of stuff that are just pretty simple to have fun as a family. Cook a meal together. Our family, my boys right up here at the cabin here, I've got the 2 boys, as Randy mentioned, and they keep bugging me to do a chop night where we just have certain ingredients that we try to put something together with. So our family laughs a lot. We just find goofy things and we watch funny videos together. We've done Chopped together as a Chopped contest. Brittany, what are some of the things that we've done that have just been fun? She gets to think we don't do anything fun together.
I don't remember. Well, we traveled a lot all the time. You guys always took us on new trips to get new experiences. We didn't travel to a lot of the same places over and over again. Trying new foods has always been something that I enjoyed and appreciated growing up. We'd be like, hey, I was at the store and I saw this and we've never tried it before. Let's all try this now. Or Chopped was amazing, where we just had 2 or 3 boxes of food. They all had the same ingredients in it. And then all the teams had to make meals with what was in the box. And then you and Dad judged that.
We celebrated with food. I mean, a lot of times food was a movie night and stuff like that we would do as a family. Yeah. I think if you're a new mom and you need help getting Dad engaged and you just need a good laugh, I would get a tape recorder or some kind of way to record your voice, fake cry into the tape recorder, put it on play, put it in the bathroom, lock the door and shut it, but don't go in there. Just hide yourself somewhere else so that when Dad comes home, he hears you crying in the bathroom with the door locked, and just watch the family panic and have to figure out how to get you out of there. I think that would be a really good opportunity for.
Wow. Wow.
Did this happen?
This didn't happen for us.
Oh, I was going to say.
I'm coming up with ideas for Caitlin. I was coming up with ideas for.
No, that's for Caitlin. Okay, I was going to say, this is one of those disclaimers.
Wow.
The views and opinions of this man do not represent
I was like,
me
what?
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Hey, and let me give you a serious tip, okay? For homeschool dads, this is very serious. You don't need to fix everything. So when you come home and maybe she is locked in the bathroom and crying.
Or maybe it's just a tape recorder.
Or maybe it's a tape recorder. You really don't know.
Don't know.
But you can be supportive. You can ask, is there anything I can do to help? But don't assume that you need to fix it. Mistake a young dad has made repeatedly over and over again that I would advise new dads to be more like, this is hard, I understand. Or maybe I don't even get it, but it's hard. And if there's anything I can do, let me know what I can do to help. But don't assume that you have to fix it, because this is hers, and that's part of being human. So, okay.
There's a stack of stuff that needs scored, Randy, upstairs in the schoolroom. So yeah, you can fix that.
Yeah, I've actually scored a bunch of it. I don't know if those grades have been moved over yet, but
I haven't received any grades yet.
I actually have, because these guys are all, I'm gonna, that's part of our family time is scoring the younger kids' work.
Okay, so that'll all be done by the time I get home.
Oh yeah, we're in gear, man. We got you. We got you.
I got lost flying, like 3 of them around me.
All right, last one that was on the original post. I'm worried about comprehension or the lack of it in language lessons for living education. I love the series, but how does it monitor reading comprehension?
Okay, so the reading is assigned as independent reading. So you're going to pick out books and you're going to assign them to the student. My approach to reading is just let kids read. I think it's far more enjoyable if they don't feel like they're going to be quizzed on everything that they've read. It kind of sucks the joy out of it for most students. There are some strange students like me that would have enjoyed filling out a worksheet on reading comprehension, but I'm pretty much the oddball. That's not typical of most students. So if you feel like your student may not be comprehending what they're reading well, then I would utilize narration. So when they read a chapter, just ask them to tell you about what they've read. Now make sure that you've actually read the chapter yourself so that you know if they're right or not, and not just, because I have also had students that would make things up. So Brittany was not one of them.
No, I was not.
I know who you were thinking of in our family. She would have definitely made things
She's
up. I don't know.
really good at it. I would read some of her
Make
things.
sure that you actually read the chapter, and you know, let them narrate to you what they've actually read. And that's a really good method to use. And it doesn't kill their desire to read because they don't have to tell you the exact things. Now, my older students, they all had to do all that stuff where they had to fill out what they read and all that. And that's where I found it just kills the joy of reading. And so that's why I don't prefer that method, because I just saw it kill the joy of reading in all my kids. But if you just have them narrate it, it's not as high pressure. So that's what I would suggest for that.
I like this.
Keep in mind that the master book method is different. We didn't create this method for a classroom. We created it for homeschooling.
Real world
homeschooling. Different.
Yep.
Laura said, I dressed up and pretended to be a substitute at times when we seemed to be getting frustrated with each other. It would have been fun. Or I would have dressed up as a foreign exchange student.
It's awesome.
Speaking of English. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about environment. Because first year homeschooling can be a little bit of a challenge, like you said. We're in a new place. Now you're not just mom, you're also mom and teacher. That's different. I think for us, you had mentioned having a designated place. I think it works really well for us having a designated start time. When we do a reset, a lot of times everybody's in the school at 9:00 a.m. That means you're dressed, teeth brushed, you've eaten breakfast, and you start school. Having a schedule helps them realize, like, it moves the brain from, like you had said, play space, eat space, fun space to learning space.
Mm-hmm.
So that's worked really well for us.
Absolutely.
I do think it's like we also do set bedtimes during school, because there are things like it's easy for homeschool families to get into the up all night, sleep all day mode. And our kids sometimes will be like that if we don't say bedtime is at 8:30 and you're up at school and doing school. What are some other things that you would say could just save somebody, you know, in their first year? Maybe a couple things.
I'm trying to think, because Carrie did that awesome post for people who are working at home, and it had so many good points in it, and I'm trying to remember, but I had chemo yesterday, so my short-term memory isn't real strong, but I know one of the things that really stuck out to me was the expectations. To understand that your kids are not going to follow your schedules, they're going to push the boundaries, and to make allowances for those things. For example, okay, right now I'm distracted. So I can understand that when I'm done with this, I may find that my boys got into something that they really shouldn't have or something like that. You can prepare for those times, like having snacks prepared ahead of time if you don't want them just raiding your cupboards or your refrigerator. Having some things like that where you're thinking ahead and having those realistic expectations. I think what can overwhelm us sometimes is the responsibilities that we have that are in addition to the schoolwork. So it's having your kids home constantly begging for snacks. It's knowing you got to cook dinner, but you're stressed because the little one is struggling with reading that day. Or that one's struggling with reading and the older one is struggling with math. And it's all falling on the day that you planned for a intense cooking. You needed a lot of prep time. So making allowance for those things, even having some things available that are your go-to, okay, I need something to do to make in a hurry. Having some things like that on hand each week that you can fall back on those days. So just kind of learning what areas that tend to be the sticking point and then making plans to offset those things.
Yeah.
Jessica said, she said, I thought it was just my kids that wanted to eat every single minute of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scheduling snack time is really a good idea. We always did that. My older kids were never allowed to just raid the kitchen. We got out of that somehow with my younger set. But now during this time, I'm self-isolating because I'm very high risk for a couple of different reasons. And my boys, both here and at home, we have limited stock right now. You know, the grocery stores don't have the food. And so we're a lot of bodies. And so I've had to go back to, this is our schedule for eating. And it's tough for them to adjust to that, but they're doing it. And now they see it as a challenge. So they have to wait till 2 o'clock for their afternoon snack. And so they're playing games and we're talking about it. We're laughing about it. We're making it more of a fun thing rather than it being this harsh, horrible thing that we have to wait till 2 o'clock for snacks.
Yeah. We're in the other house. We're still raiding the refrigerator.
I don't know what you guys are doing.
Anytime. Well, I got a couple of personal things that I would say, and this applies to everything. It isn't just homeschooling, but especially in your first year, allow room for growth. Allow your kids room to grow because it's a change for them. Give yourself permission for growth. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the model homeschool family. The object is we're going to grow into this position and we're going to learn, and everything that we learn may actually change as our family changes, our kids change, babies get added, jobs change, all of that. So stay very fluid but don't lock yourself into this standard of perfection, because it doesn't exist. And that would be the first. The second that I would say is you get what you lead. And as a leader, you are a leader as a parent. And we oftentimes have to evaluate when we see breakdown or we see our children not performing the way we want to. Is there anything in me that's modeling that? Am I leading in a way that could be they're demonstrating that? Because sometimes it's just a change. Sometimes I'm overly stressed. Sometimes I'm intense with everybody around me. Maybe I'm nitpicking, whatever. And then I'm frustrated because the kids are always fighting and bickering and intense and those things. So not that that's the solution for everything, but it's just something to be aware of in a first year homeschooling.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
Enjoy the children you have.
Not the ones you wish you
Not
had.
the ones.
She didn't say that.
Because we look at our kids and we have these expectations. And we look at other kids, and sometimes we can be envious. Well, so-and-so's kids are perfectly behaved, and you know, they ace everything and school's easy for them. And my Siri has turned on and it's been recording everything. Not sure what that was about. So, you know,
Squirrel.
really think about the strengths and the things that you love about your own students, including their struggles, and embrace that instead of fighting it, and, you know, enjoy the kids that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enjoy the husband you have too.
Are you speaking to me personally?
I'm going to interject with a question.
Go ahead.
Good. Jill asked, how tight do you keep a schedule? I've tried to have a schedule, but then the toddler has a diaper blowout. Another young child needs help in the bathroom. Now the toddler's having a meltdown. The elementary student is starting to shut down because she can't understand something, etc. Now my schedule's way off. What do I do with the schedule now?
Flexibility is key.
The schedule gives you the general direction that you want to go, but you may take some detours to get there. But if you have no schedule, it's like having no goal. You'll wake up during the day and maybe you'll get some things done, maybe you won't. I think in the master books, one of the things we've done is we've created a parent lesson plan, and we purposely didn't put a spot for dates, because you may be three-quarters of the way through the book and suddenly mom ends up in the hospital with kidney stones. All of a sudden, life has just stopped for a week or 2 weeks. The beauty about master books is when you sit back at the table, you just start where you left off. You're not tied into the date. And you just adapt it to fit real life. That's why we say real life homeschooling, because life happens. We don't have substitute teachers coming in and working for us when we're sick. We work all the time. So giving that. Okay.
Good.
I liken it to taking a walk through the woods on a well-worn path. The well-worn path is our schedule, but there are times that we get off the path for one reason or another. But we know where that path is, and we're always looking to get back onto that path.
That's sage. Okay. Anything else? Got any questions? In this group, there are a lot of seasoned homeschool moms who have homeschooled all the way through high school and have graduated children. They don't always get involved in the conversations, but if you have questions, feel free to ask the questions. Now, the Master Books group is more, it's curriculum related. There are a lot of good general homeschool groups that people can offer advice to. And so we keep that for those groups. Ours is more related to curriculum in this group, just to keep it on task. We also have the app. So an exciting announcement that I have, the writer of our civics course, Jake McCulley, is going to join me tomorrow, Friday at 3 o'clock, and we're going to do a discussion like this about the basics of government. We see the government all the time. We see the president, we see Congress and Senate and all of the things. And sometimes I'm confused. I don't know what it takes to actually enact a law. What does the Constitution have to do with any of it? All of that. So as our families are having a front row seat to our government in action, I've asked Jake to come in and help us a little bit, to help me understand government, help me understand why the Speaker of the House can stop something and the majority and all this type of stuff. So he's going to come in and give us that. So that's tomorrow at 3. I'm real excited about that. Jake has an awesome ministry presenting on the Constitution. If you didn't comment, make sure you do. First year homeschooler or going into homeschooling, and Brittany's going to choose 2 people, one in the app, one in the Facebook group, to go. Chris, do you have anything to close us out?
I want to encourage the families who, maybe they were toying with homeschooling, and then suddenly this whole situation has sped up their plans, and so now they're just going to start. Take a deep breath and spend some time really thanking the Lord for how good He is and the positives of it, without getting completely overwhelmed. If you want to go ahead and just start now, go for it. If you don't want to and you just want to start fresh at the beginning of the new school year, If that's more comforting to you, then do that. Just take a little bit of a break and enjoy your children, regardless of what you decide. Spend some time just enjoying this very strange season, rather than panicking, and get some extra sleep. And remember to spend some time in the Word. The Psalms is a really good place to visit during this time. Try not to watch too much of what's going on, and try not to think too much, too hard, and get yourself into a stressful, stress and anxiety. Remember to spend that time in the Word and just, pray through this. Pray through this and focus on the positive and speak life and thankfulness into this as an example for your children, and also to keep your own focus.
Good. Did you have anything more?
Oh yeah, Carrie Bailey asked if the video tomorrow will be more geared towards the moms or if it's something the kids can jump in on too.
It's awesome for moms. It's awesome for all ages of kids. I told Jake I want it to be so elementary students would understand as well. And we'll have opportunity where you'll be able to ask him questions and that type of thing as well. So yeah, everybody's invited. Everybody will get something, I believe, from it. So if I could wrap up with one thing, Proverbs 3:5 verse 3. No. Let me start that again. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths." When we pastored, one of the things that we said was we had a sign that we would give to each other in the church. If I walked into a hospital room, everybody knew when I said this, it meant don't look into your own understanding right now. Trust that the Lord has you and that he is directing your steps. And for homeschool families who suddenly are thrown into some new situations, we can tell you after 30 years of marriage, after 29 years of parenting, and 50 years of life, sometimes the biggest disruptions are the most remarkable stories on the other side. And so just remember, he's got this, he's got our backs, and we have a lot of opportunities and a lot of things to be thankful for. All right, guys. Well, hey, hopefully this was a blessing to some families, and we will be doing more of these types of things over the next few weeks, just trying to help families get centered. And if you have questions, we're doing Q&As on Tuesday. We're doing some Instagram stuff, and then that's that.
Good job. Good job.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris, for joining us. It looks beautiful there. And
80s, sun shining,
yeah,
birds chirping.
Perched on the side of a hill. Nice.
It's beautiful.
Well, we're here in the valley.
But the sun is still shining.
Sun is still shining in the valley. All right, guys. God bless you. We'll talk to you next week. Oh, no, tomorrow at 3. 3 Central Standard Time.
Good job.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye.